I like this to be a cooperative workshop where we're, it's not just me. I mean, I do end up talking quite a bit, so, but I want you to contribute. If you've got any questions about anything, please do raise it. Even if you think it doesn't directly apply to what we're doing, any questions are welcome here. In terms of some of the exercises we do, potentially could bring up some feelings. Hasn't happened yet in a big way here so far, but if it does, that's absolutely fine with me. None of that stuff freaks me out. But I think for really deep therapeutic work, I think another situation is the best place to do that. My own approach to meditation is that it sort of sits within a framework of other practices I do, and I've been a client in psychotherapy for I think 12 years. So psychotherapy for me is a really important thing to do, but this isn't necessarily a psychotherapy session. This is more to do with meditation and different states of consciousness practice. But that, having said that, so I'm saying it. If you think you might end up going quite deep emotionally into something, you might want to choose to just go in a little bit shallow. Or if you need to excuse yourself, that's absolutely fine. But if anything does come up, don't worry about that. I'm fine with it, and I'm sure everyone else here is cool with anybody doing anything like that. But I'm not. I just want to reassure you, I'm not going to be pushing you beyond your limits. I'm very much into pushing beyond one's limits, but you've got to do that at the right time. And what I'm interested in doing with meditation teaching is to, the expression where if you give somebody a fish, you've fed them for lunch, but if you teach someone how to fish, then they've got a lifetime of food. So I like to give you as much as I can for you to take away and develop through your life doing practice. Because I think it's really important that there's a weekend workshop phenomenon thing where you go and do some kind of workshop somewhere and it's all really great, and then you go back to your normal life and forget everything you've learned and never put into practice. I'm a big believer in long-term sustained practice, and to do 5 minutes of meditation a day every day is to my mind is better than doing nothing for a whole year and then going on a 10-day intensive retreat. I think going on retreats is really important, and having periods of time where you do a lot of meditation practice or whatever practice you're doing to go really deep. But if that's you've got the kind of the deep narrow approach, and then you've also got the kind of scatter broad approach, and I think if you do both of them, then you're covering all your bases. But people do have because of their personality types, do tend to gravitate towards one or the other is your strength. And for me, it's I'm quite good at just developing practices that I do every day. It's something I don't have a problem with, that kind of discipline. Whereas if someone really struggled with that, then they might go more towards doing these intense periods of practice a bit more. But I think if you hold both of those in your mind, it's important. So before I start going any further, could everybody we just whip round? If people can just in like 1 minute just say your name and what you'd like to get out of today, if anything. And if you haven't got anything to say, just say your name and say I'm going to see what happens, and then we'll just go to the next person. So
Nick. I think what I'd like to get is exactly what you've just said, a sort of regular application of the practice, like even just 5 minutes a day, like making that something that I do as part of a routine. So I think this could be a good kind of way of starting that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Josh, and similar kind of thing to Nick there. I do meditate, but not enough, but not as much as I would like to, and I feel like I've never really done something like this before, a full day like this, so I think I would like to kind of just go a bit deeper really, and kind of better understanding of different ways of approaching it, and hopefully that will help me continue it a bit more and use it a bit more in my day-to-day.
Cool.
And Sarah, what they said, but also, just definitely to be doing it more often, daily practice, and I feel that when I do, I'm a lot calmer and more methodical and focused, obviously, and do things more mindfully, even if it's like cooking or whatever you're doing it mindfully, which is really important.
Thank you.
Just encouragement to make it more of a regular thing to meditate. That's it.
Okay.
I'm Ollie. I do quite a lot of particularly breathing, a lot of conscious breathing throughout the day. I just really love different techniques, and I really love connecting different groups, and insight comes sometimes not as expected, so I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, good, thank you.
I'm Sam. It's just nice to have, because we run Bournemouth Meditation, and so we do all these groups, we never get to do anything, we're always running groups, so it's just so nice to be here and it to be your responsibility.
Yeah.
Not ours, we can just sort of take in the day basically.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jules. I'm just here to learn and to shut my monkey mind up. Just to switch off. Yeah, my life's so full. I don't give my mind a chance to just stop. So it'd be lovely to learn how to tune into that and just be guided and just stop the chatter. Yeah.
Well, congratulations for recognising the need to do that. So some people never have the good fortune to have that realisation. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Marie. I'm just going to flow with it today.
Okay.
I just come to experience, I've done quite a bit of meditating, but I do find it hard to focus sometimes. Just to more realign and tune myself back into that place, really.
Okay. Good. I did go to Sam and Ollie. I went to one of their sessions, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of like movement and stuff to really uplifting music, and it was really cool. This would be a bit more of the sort of sitting type, active meditation. I believe that's what you guys call that stuff. So I mean, that raises a really important point. Meditation is not one practice. There's tons of different types of meditation. And there's one example. There's sitting meditation, and then there's dynamic active meditation, where you're sort of moving but trying to maintain a meditative state of mind. And today we're going to look at 3 different types of meditation practice, and then also how to be doing that kind of thing all day. Because the really important thing is you don't end up with this split in your life of when you're sitting on your meditation cushion you are a certain way, and then when you get off and you go to work and you start interacting with people, you just kind of, forget. It's like, when you have a dream and you're totally lost in it, you're just being blown around by these sort of haphazard events in your dream, and and then when you sit on your meditation cushion, it's a little bit like you're waking up. And I heard someone describe it recently. There's a guy called Ajay Shanti, who's quite a good meditation teacher. He said it's like being an alcoholic and becoming sober, but you have to spend the rest of your life living in a bar with everybody around you drinking. So it's kind of like it's like that. Not to just go unconscious and lose it when you go out into normal life. So that's kind of why I call this meditation workshop Waking Up, because it's like you're waking up from the dream, these kind of grooves that we get pushed down. But waking up is important to say that waking up is one sort of movement in meditation, but there's a complementary movement of what you might call waking down. We'll talk about that, but sometimes people can use meditation as a way of, and I'm talking from personal experience here, of transcending the discomfort of life. And in fact, that's a lot of the reason why a lot of people come to meditation in the first place, is they're like, ouch, life hurts, and I just want to make it a little bit more manageable. And some people turn to alcohol or painkillers, and some people turn to meditation. And that's a really important thing meditation can do for you. So I don't want to say that's not a good reason to do meditation. Meditation is very effective for soothing your nervous system. And one of the types of meditation practice we'll look at today, which is the breathing meditation, is just a superb tool to develop in your life. When the poo hits the fan, you can just sink. If you develop through practice the ability to just sink into your breathing, it really, really can see you through some difficult spots. But you always want to keep an eye on what some people have called spiritual bypassing, where you find life's too painful and you just want to bypass that pain by transcending it, meditating it, or going into a state of consciousness where you feel separated from everything. So that's something to keep an eye on, because some of the actual traditions of meditation push people down that route without making it explicit, and then you can find years down the road that you've been basically meditating to avoid your inability to deal with life, So that's one thing to flag at the outset. Does that ring any bells for people?
Yeah, I think it does with me, because I would suffer with depression and anxiety, and I think that's what happened, to just shut off and close it all off and go into a little,
Yeah, so in a kind of balanced approach to that, I would say it's absolutely fine to use meditation. It's a sort of natural way to self-soothe.
As well, I think, in the case of depression.
Sorry?
Avoidance as well, possibly. It gets to a bad, balance sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit like using antidepressant medication or something. Can be really important at a certain point in your life to give you the space to actually get out of the hole and start organising your life. But you don't. It's not necessarily the aim for most people to be on antidepressant meds their whole life. So a real theme that I want to try and get across today is a sort of harmonious balance between lots of different things and approaches and perspectives. that people can end up going a bit nuts when they become obsessed with one particular thing and they really go down the rabbit hole of it, and they forget about these other perspectives. So which brings me on to there's two concepts which would be really great things for you to take away from today. One is this particular concept I came across through the work of someone called Ken Wilber, and it's called using the first, second and third person perspectives. So in language you have first person perspective is I. So when you're saying, I am looking out the window, I am listening to the wind, that's the first person perspective. Second person perspective is Ollie, how are you finding the sound of the wind? You enjoying it? And he might say how he feels, and we're in a communication. There's a second person perspective going on there. And then a third person perspective is we're talking about stuff in it language. So we're not, rather than talking about how I feel about the wind, the sound of the wind, and rather than saying what do you think about the wind, we're just talking about the wind as a scientific phenomenon, and you tend to use it language. It is blowing against the side of the house. Yeah, and these are perspectives that appear in the vast majority of the world's languages. So they're kind of inherent perspectives in the way we see things, and this applies to meditation in the sense that you learn about something. So if you're learning about meditation here today in a third person perspective, we're talking about it as a thing, meditation, a practice. We might talk about the history of it, the tradition of it, the techniques, how to sit, what to do, the instructions. That's all it language. Yeah, and then you can talk to other people about it, about their experiences, and that helps develop your understanding further. So in meditation, in Buddhism, for example, they have something called the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So the Dharma is all the teachings and the stuff you learn, the lessons, and the Sangha is the community of people that you practice with. So here we've got a little mini Sangha for the day, this little community where we can talk to each other to help develop our understanding of what we've been learning about. And then the final step in that progression is the first person perspective, where you directly experience what you've learnt about and talked about with other people as your own direct experience. So you might say, we might talk about consciousness as a thing, what it is, and then we might discuss that between ourselves. What's it feel like to be you and to be conscious right now? And then as meditation is a sort of direct experience of yourself as consciousness, and what does that feel like for you? And if you use those three perspectives, it keeps again this balanced view that if you get stuck in the third person perspective, all you ever do is read tons of books about stuff and meditation, philosophy, all that kind of stuff, but you might never find other people to discuss it with, so that you might just be stuck with that. And then you could do the second person stuff where you're learning things, you're talking to other people, but you're never actually doing something yourself, making it your own personal experience, an I experience. But then sometimes you get people that just do the first person I stuff, and have you ever met someone who's having a psychotic episode who believes they're the Messiah and the universe revolves around them. Have you, yeah, I mean it's a thing. I've met a few people like that. They are completely stuck, and you talk to them, and you can say, "Oh, but what about this other person who's saying exactly the same thing?" Or you put 10 of those in the same room, and those people, but they are stuck in a first-person perspective, and they are not going into the second-person thing where they're discussing people, and they're immune to objective facts that you might be trying to present them. So does that make sense? When it's a new idea, it can be a little bit hard to get your head around. But did I explain that adequately? Is there any questions? Because I'll tie this in with the practices we're doing. Any questions about that?
No, I really like it.
Yeah, cool. For me, it's a really simple idea, but it's been an absolute dynamite for my meditation practice when I came across it. And the other concept is the 3 different types of meditation practice we're going to do today. Working on 3 different fundamental aspects of our identity. So in the, I can put the heating on in a bit. Is anyone cold?
A little bit cold.
A little bit cold. Okay. I'll put the heating on in 10 minutes. Maybe yeah. So in the different meditation traditions, they use different language, but this particular type of this language I'm using comes from Hinduism, where they have what they call gross physical realm, which is, the meat of your body, and solid stuff. Not gross in that American sense of gross. It's just gross as in really obvious, solid. Yeah. That's going to be more to do with the breathing, embodied meditation practice we're going to do. And then the next is what they call subtle realm, and that in the meditation practice we're doing today, that's more the visualization practice. But within the subtle realm, so within the gross physical realm comes practices like hatha yoga and working out in the gym, breathing meditations, deep physical relaxation, those kind of practices. The subtle realm practices, visualization, dreaming. When you're dreaming, you're in a subtle world that's, your body's lying on a bed somewhere, and you're in a virtual reality world where you're having this dream. And that there is a phenomenon called lucid dreaming, which, has everyone heard of that before? Yeah, where you're aware that you're dreaming whilst you're dreaming. So that's sometimes referred to as waking up, becoming conscious in the subtle realm. I put most psychedelics in that band as well, of the subtle realm experiences. And then the third is what they call causal, which is kind of a weird term, but in Buddhism, for example, they call this formlessness. So this is consciousness as something on its own, without any contents, formless awareness, which might sound a bit weird if you've never encountered this before, but it's actually really simple, and I'm going to do a guided meditation in that. And in terms of this thing of having a balanced, harmonious practice, if you're working on all of these 3 levels, you get a really stable practice, an integrated practice. And of course, people will naturally gravitate to one of these 3 types of practice, because everybody's got different natural talents, and you might do a lot of, you might become a very proficient in a subtle realm practice, but just do a little bit of the physical, the gross stuff and the formless practice. Or you might go very deep into the formlessness, but if you do the other two types of practice as well, then it stops you becoming lopsided in your development as you go along the path. And I say one more thing before we actually start meditating, that is about the path of meditation itself. So there's this what we're going to do today is, there's quite a lot of talk in meditation traditions and the meditation world of obliterating your ego, and people come across that kind of ego death, all of those sort of things. I've learned the hard way that you don't really need to do that. What we're today, I'm not going to be encouraging you to obliterate your personality. Okay, so just want to put that out there. The traditional path goes from you're only identified with your personality, then you discover meditation, you discover aspects of yourself which are referred to as transpersonal, and we'll discuss what those are when the time is appropriate. And then once you've kind of like really explored the transpersonal, then you pick up your personality again and integrate it into this wider transpersonal context. So what you've done is gone from believing you're something really small into going deep into the sort of beyond, and then coming out the other side a bigger, your identity's been expanded, you're the personality plus the transpersonal parts of yourself. And it sounds kind of like big and extraordinary, but it can be really, really simple, and I'm going to guide you guys through that. But the reason why it's important to know the direction the path goes in is quite often people will go from being identified exclusively with their personality to the transpersonal bit, and then they just stay there and they never pick their personality back up again. And quite a lot of the problems with gurus, and I mean everybody's heard of the gurus that have over the last 60 years in the Western world have done all sorts of mad stuff, and quite a lot of that is to do with doing these types of practice and then getting stuck in this transpersonal place, and they've disowned their personality. But your personality doesn't ever go away. All you can do is own it again as part of yourself. And if you can't do that, you'll just be acting out in just the most appalling ways. And there's tons of books and documentaries out there about people that have done absolutely mad stuff, and then they've got thousands of followers all around the world who have just given all their common sense away, and they're basically following a lunatic. And yeah, the lucky ones realise what they're doing, and they come out and they write books about it, and we can all learn, so we don't have to do that ourselves. So I've been doing meditation for more than 20 years, 23, 24 years or something like that. Started when I was a teenager, and I went to India and Nepal and that when I left school. And then I went to a university, School of Oriental and African Studies. I learnt about it in an academic context, did a degree, and then I've been meditating ever since in lots of different traditions. So any religious context, I'm quite happy talking in that language, whether it's Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, scientific, atheist. It's all welcome here. And because I've been doing it such a long time, there's things I've done wrong, which if I could meet myself at the beginning of the path, I wish I wish I had a time machine and I could tell myself, don't worry about going down, just remember this, and it would have saved a lot of time. So that's what my aim is, to share some of the mistakes I've made, so save you having to make them yourselves. Okay, so that was quite a long preamble, but we're going to do some meditating now.